Welcome to episode 2 in the Europa Universalis IV modding guide for beginners. My name is Alex or Midgeman, and I am one of your community ambassadors. Throughout this series, you'll be joining me as we create our very first mod together. When we last left off, our mod, my first mod, had nothing in it apart from a descriptor file. In this video, we'll be changing that and covering the following: how to create a country, how to add it onto the map, how to create a flag for your country, and how to create a name for your country. Before we start editing any files, we're going to cover a key modding tool that will help us today: the debug mode. To access debug mode, start up the game, and in the console commands, which you can access on Windows by pressing the tilde key, type in debug_mode and then press enter. Now it should be activated. This tool is useful in modding because it will give us the information about hidden aspects of the game. For example, when I hover over Stockholm, I can see two crucial bits of information utilized when modding. First of all, you see that there is our province ID. A province ID is a unique string of numbers that is used to identify each province from one another. Each province has its own unique ID, and Stockholm's ID is 1. Secondly, there is the country tag. A country tag is a 3-digit code utilized in the tag and console commands to refer to a country. It can be used as a scope, a trigger, or even an effect in certain situations. Sweden's country tag is SWE. England's is ENG, and so on and so forth. The 3-digit code can use numbers, and the letters included do not have to be the same as the ones in the country name. For example, the Ottomans are referred to as TUR in the code for Turkey. Each country should have a unique tag, as if they overlap, it can cause duplication issues. Now that we've started using debug mode, let's get into the main focus for this video: creating a country. To start, let's create a few folders. In your My First Mod directory, create a new folder called Common. Common is where many of the game's files are located, and we will be using it today. Open it up and create 2 more folders inside of Common. One should be called Countries and another country_tags. First, we'll need to define the tag for our country. Inside your country_tags folder, create a text file and name this text document myfirstmod_countries. Opening it up, we're going to start by typing the 3-digit tag for our country, which in this case will be MFM for My First Mod. Now, it's not enough to just type in a tag code, we need to tell the game where to look for My First Mod's information. So we create a path inside this file by typing the following inside the myfirstmod_countries file: MFM equals quotation mark countries / myfirstmod.txt close quotation. The quotation marks are important, so don't forget those. It is very important that the path is correct and matches where the My First Mod country file actually is. If it is false, the game will crash while loading, as it is searching for a country that does not exist. Once that is done, we need to create the My First Mod's country file. For this next section, I recommend using the base game files for assistance, as it will save us plenty of time. This is true for most aspects of modding. Don't always try to reinvent the wheel. Use the base game files for inspiration, assistance, and as a reference. We're going to go into the Europa Universalis IV base game files, which can be accessed through the Steam Workshop by right-clicking the game, clicking Properties, clicking Installed Files, and then clicking Browse. We want to grab a country file that we can use. So we go into Common, Countries, and then we're going to grab the country file of Sweden. We're going to copy it and go back to our mod directory, into Common, and then into Countries. In there, I'm going to paste the Sweden file and rename it to My First Mod. Once again, make sure your country file name is the same as in country_tags, or the game will crash. Opening My First Mod, we see several aspects to the country file. Number 1, the graphical culture, which tells the game what graphics to use for units and advisors. 2, the color, which uses RGB color coding to decide the color of the country on the map. I'm going to make hours 100, 100, and 100. The revolutionary color, which uses RGB color coding to decide the color that the flag should be should it ever become a revolutionary nation. The historical score, which sets the score the nation will get based on its actions in history. The preferred religion, which helps the AI determine what religion it will convert to. This doesn't make it always attempt to become this religion, but will make it far more likely to do so if set. The historical idea groups, which decide what idea groups the country will choose in later start dates. This will not determine what idea groups the nation will pick when playing a regular game from start, however. Historical units, which decides what unit types the nation will pick. Monarch names, which determines what randomly generated first names can appear as rulers. The pound sign here determines regnal numbering, meaning there has already been in this country's history that many kings with that name. For example, in our file, Carl has the pound sign and then a 7, meaning the next king named Carl will be Carl the 8th. This will only work if the government type enables regnal numbering. The equal sign and the numbering represents how weighted the monarch's name is to appear when randomly generated. The higher the number, the more likely it is to appear. If the number is in the negatives, then the name will be assigned to a female ruler. Leader names, which determines the possible randomly generated names for military leaders. If you want to have multiple words, like von Aschenberg, make sure to include it in quotation marks. Ship names, which determines the possible randomly generated names of ships. Army names, which determines the possible randomly generated names of armies. And fleet names, which determines the possible randomly generated names of fleets. With all that done, you have created a country successfully. However, we still do not have several key parts of this process done. The history file. Next, return to your mod directory folder, exiting the common folder. You need to create another new folder. This one called History. The History folder is where provinces, diplomacy, and country details are located. Right now, we just have a country, but it's not on the map, nor does it actually have any information quite yet. Inside History, let's create a folder called Countries. In this folder, we're going to create a file called mfm-myfirstmod.txt. This is where the details of our country will be put in. First of all, we're going to need to define what type of government our nation uses. There are 5 kinds of government type: monarchy, theocracy, republic, native, or tribal. Each of these have different mechanics and reforms with them, and those reforms can be found by going back to the EU4 game files, going into common, clicking on government reforms, and then looking through any of the files. They are labeled accordingly, so you can pick and choose what reform you want. Going back to our country file, I want it to be a monarchy, so I'm going to put in government equals monarchy. Now I'm going to pick the government reform. I'm going to put in the basic monarchy reform, feudalism_reform. Now, when we pick our country in 1444, it will be a monarchy with the feudalism reform. Next, we can add a technology group. There are several different technology groups. Each can affect your country in different ways. It gives you different unit types, whether certain events will fire or not, whether or not they will have vision on different provinces, unit types, and other smaller triggers across the game. All different groups can be found by going into the EU4 folder and going into the common folder, and then following that up by going to the technology file. I'm going to put technology_group equals Western into our country file so that our country is Western technology. Primary culture determines what primary culture we will be, which can be found by going into the common and then culture folder and then clicking on the 00_culture.txt file. There is a list of all the different cultures in the game, listed by the cultural groups they are in. I will put culture equals Swedish for ours. Religion determines what religion our country will be. To find a list of religions, go once more to the common folder and then go into the religion folder and open up the 00_religions.txt file. I want our country to be Catholic, so I will put religion equals Catholic. Capital determines where our country's capital province will be and requires I put in a province ID. If you put the wrong province ID or forget to list a capital, there could be glitches or mistakes during the startup of a game. For our sakes, we're going to put its capital province ID as 1, and then a £, Stockholm, next to it. As a reminder, A £sign in any of these text documents will indicate that everything to the right of it is a comment, so that the code does not read it. Next, let's give our country a ruler. To do this, we start by putting down our start date, 1444.1.1 equals open curly bracket, new paragraph, close curly bracket. Everything in these brackets will be true if we were starting the game in 1444. If we want to define a ruler, we simply type monarch equals followed by the brackets again. We can include lots of different information here, but we're going to keep it to the basics. We'll give him a name, a dynasty, and then define his administrative, diplomatic, and military skill. Note that when defining monarch points, we use the shortened form of ADM, dip, and mil, similar to console commands. To set a monarch's age in this format, we set a birth date with the command birth date equals followed by the date. That's all the details we're going to give for our nation today. You can put effects in this file for it to affect the country upon starting the game, but for the purposes of this video, we're simply going to move on. The province file. We've defined the country, but they still need to be put on the map. For this, we need to edit the provinces file. Go back to your mod's history file and create a new folder called provinces. We're not going to be creating any new provinces in this video, so instead we're going to copy a province file from the base game. Once more, let's go back to the EU4 files and click on history, provinces, and then let's grab the province file for 1 Upland. We will copy it and paste it into our own province file. When we open the file, there's a lot of information, but we're only going to focus on 3 lines of information: the owner, controller, and add_core. The owner determines who has permanent control over the province, while the controller determines who has occupied the province. The owner only changes if the province is annexed, while the controller can change if the province is occupied in a war. Add_core determines who has a core in the province. There can be multiple cores on a single province. We're going to change the SWE tag code for MFM in all of these categories, meaning my first mod will own, control, and have cores on Upland. At the bottom of the file, there's a series of dates, starting with 1436/4/28. The game does allow for alternate start dates, and these date scopes will allow you to edit the province's history during those dates. We're not going to worry about that. Delete all of these dates. The flag. While our country is now on the map, there's still a few more things on our checklist. First of all, the flag. Let's go back to our mod directory and create a new folder called GFX. This is where icons and graphics will end up going. For now, let's create a folder in GFX called flags. All flags should have the size of 128 by 128 pixels. They should be a True Vision Graphics Adapter or TGA file, and they should be named the same as the country tag. This can be done in an image editor, specifically paint.net. I will put this flag in the flags file and name it MFM. The name. Last but not least, we have to give our country a name. Going back to the mod directory, we need to create a folder called localization. Make sure to use the British English spelling of localization with an S rather than a Z. In the localization folder, we need to create a file for our localization to go into. All localization files use a YML file type, which can be written in any file editing tool. So for that, I'm going to create a file called mfm_countries_l_english.yml. By writing _English at the end, we have set this for the English language localization of the game. If you want your mod to be ported to French, German, Spanish, or any other supported language, you will need to have changed that in the name of the file. Now, when we open this up with our text editor, the first thing we need to do is type l_English : into the document. Make sure that the L is lowercase. Next, we type in our country's name, adjective, and secondary adjective, like so. While in the English localizations, the second adjective is not needed, if you want to port the mod to other languages, like French, it will be necessary. An important thing to note is encoding. Encoding is saving the localization in a specific way that the game can actually read it. EU4 uses UTF-8 with BOM encoding. So make sure that when you save your file, either on Notepad++ or VS Code, you save the file with the UTF-8 encoding. If your localization isn't appearing in the game or is garbled or glitchy, this might be the cause of it. With that, when we load up the game and take a look around at our nation, we have now created our country, flag, our ruler, our province, and our name. Thank you for watching yet another episode of this EU4 modding tutorial. Join us next time as we look deeper into how to create events for your mod. Remember to like and subscribe if you want more Europa Universalis videos. And from everybody here at Paradox, we will see you next time.